Good afternoon, everyone. I'm now going to call the May 12th, 2026 Ben Lapine School Budget Committee meeting to order. I would like to introduce our participants this evening. We got Budget Committee Vice Chair Natasha McFarland. We got committee members Ned Luce, Sharon Bellucci, Bryce Johnson, and Carol Marsh Rhodes. Chief Financial Officer Dan Emerson, Assistant Director of Finance Budget Nick Sheen, Board Chair Marcus LeGrand, Board Vice Chair Amy Taintum, and Directors Carmen Fisher, Kina Chadwick, who's joining us virtually. We also have Jen Lynch, Ross Tomlin, and Shirley Olson. Superintendent Dr. Steve Cook, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Lisa Burke, and Board Clerk Jeanette Janowski. Sorry. And I am Apollo Aguirre, Chair of the Budget Committee. Moving on to review of the agenda, Dr. Cook, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Fellow committee members, are there any changes to the agenda? Thank you. Hearing no requests for changes, we will proceed to the agenda as noticed. Thank you. We will now move to the public comment section of the agenda. Each individual will be afforded 2 minutes to speak, and a timer will be provided on the large screen. Board Clerk Janet Bojanowski will now call the individuals for, and if any, forward in order that they have signed, in the order they have signed up. Janet?
Okay, we'll now hear from Justin Stakel. We'll have you come right up here. He has, yep, and you'll just push the button on the mic.
Hello? Don't push the button. Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Justin Steckel. My wife, Anya, and I are parents of 3 children in Ben Lapine School District, including 2 current students at High Lakes Elementary. We believe music, PE, and art are foundational parts of elementary education, and ideally every elementary school in our district would have full-time teachers dedicated to each of those programs. We also understand the district is navigating very real budget constraints and difficult staffing decisions. What concerns many families at High Lakes Elementary is that the current enrollment-based staffing model appears to be creating avoidable instability tied to enrollment shifts following the 2019 boundary changes associated with the opening of North Star Elementary. Over the past several years, High Lakes enrollment has declined significantly following those boundary changes. The school is now projected to have roughly 140 fewer students than Miller Elementary, which is about a mile away, despite the schools having very similar physical capacity and infrastructure. That enrollment gap represents roughly 5 to 6 classrooms worth of students and has significant implications for staffing allocation and program stability. As a result of the declining attendance, High Lakes no longer generates enough staffing allocation to sustain the full-time PE and music positions our families care so deeply about. That not only impacts staff members on paper, but also risks disrupting the continuity, relationships, and well-developed programs that Mr. Mueller and Mr. Horton have built over many years within the school community. We want to encourage the district and budget committee to explore long-term structural solutions, including boundary adjustments that better balance the enrollment among nearby schools and make better use of existing district resources and school capacity. We also want to encourage openness to creative ways families and communities may be able to support programs schools value when unique opportunities arise. Our families care deeply about the issue and are eager to work constructively with the district to help find solutions. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Did we have Dylan joining us virtually? Sean? Okay, that concludes the public comment portion.
We will now move to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Amy and Marcus has made the motion, and Marcus has seconded the motion. At this time, I will now call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Abstentions? Thank you. So motion passes unanimously. At this time, we will now hear from Dr. Cook for a budget message.
Thank you, Apollo. Thank you, committee members. Thank you, board. We're going to have a session from our financial team here shortly. Before we do, I want to just inform you all that the budget we've built this year has taken a lot of effort, a lot of work to try to build this budget. I do want to be on the record that I want to say some things to you all about, despite the barriers of building this budget, I want to bring some attention to those. For example, we built a budget in which we can meet the students' needs to the best of our extent, despite the poverty calculation in the state being based upon estimates regarding a census rather than actual direct certification rates for the state. We built a budget despite a poor calculation of current service level, leaving an SSF fund, state school fund, that does not meet the actual cost from year to year. We built a budget that meets the needs of our students despite unfunded mandates such as fluorescent light bulbs that we were not giving any resources to administer, and that's a $25 million expense, believe it or not, despite unprecedented unemployment changes that allow unemployment costs to increase over 400% with no new dollars, despite administering Paid Leave Oregon, which is a wonderful program. And by the way, on these unfunded mandates, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about the value of the program, I'm talking about the fact that we're expected to administer these programs with no additional resources. At any given point, 20% of the staff of Ben Lapine Schools is accessing Paid Leave Oregon as a resource, thus putting tremendous costs and expenses into our substitute pool. Despite paying union staff while on strike. Now, we haven't had to experience that yet, but that is actually a cost that we will be responsible for burden. Despite the fact that in summer school and Ben Lapine Schools, we do not receive 1 penny from the state, and the state continues to call that a success. We do not qualify to receive any of those dollars. We are one of those districts do not. We built a budget despite unprecedented increase in PERS rate that now account for about 31% of our total PERS total state school fund dollars. And this one is big for me, and I want to make sure this is clear. We built the budget despite the state refusing to fund the 21-23 biennium, funding it at a rate of 3%, telling us that we were rich with ESSER dollars at the time, and saying, use those dollars. We built this budget without those dollars, and if you recall, the average rate of funding, biennia over biennia, is at about 10.5%. That 3% funding rate for that biennia meant that there is an inherent now shortfall, and we will never be able to catch up to those costs that we cannot control because revenue grows year over year at about a 6 or 7% rate, and they did not fund us at that. We built this budget despite being underfunded in special education. It's capped at 11%. We're above 11% in our total population. We built this despite being reimbursed on high-cost disability at a rate of 27% on the dollar. We built this budget despite all the state grants did not increase at the same rate, and so therefore those increased costs that we have for personnel are being taxed onto the general fund. Our state reporting requirements are increasing. The PBAM ledger expansion is a good example of that. No additional funds are coming because of that. We built this budget despite the fact that the state tax code is tied to the federal tax code, so we reduced the total state income by $1 billion this year due to that. We built this budget based upon the state school fund as a percentage of total state spending decreasing year over year for the last 22 years. Built this budget despite federal funds that support our neediest students with title funds and IDEA receiving no increases while costs increase over 9%. Those are just a few of the things. And before we go into questions, I want to make sure that we all understand the constraints that we've had to build this budget on and why this matters so much. The simple effect of taking one-time ESSER dollars in that 21-23 biennium and telling us to use those dollars when they expire, then telling us that we're being fiscally irresponsible for not having those dollars allocated appropriately is something we should all be concerned about if our legislators truly believe that that was a responsible service. And so I want to turn that over now to our team and say, make this room feel a little better about what I just presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. For the record, Dan Emerson, Chief Financial Officer. Yeah, I think since the last time we went, we did a 3-hour or so meeting, very much in depth on the state of, kind of Ben Lapine schools and why we've had to cut $7.1 million, and we expect to probably have to make adjustments and cuts in the future as well. As Dr. Cook indicated, the funding, 90+% of our funding comes from the state school fund, and we're just not seeing it at a level that supports our current staffing. So I will say that since our proposed budget meeting last time, there's been no changes to the budget presented to you. I think where we left off in that meeting was budget committee members kind of wondering how we were going to make that 7.1 cut. That was my read of the room, that was kind of the most important thing. So I do have some updates for you on that. We are still working through parts of this, but you may remember we ultimately cut $1.8 million of non-personnel costs out of operations, and those included things like discretionary cuts, some cuts to curriculum that would be out of the TLC portion of that. We also cut things from our IT department, our facility departments, delayed and deferred maintenance to come up with that $1.8 million. And that's kind of our second year in a row when it comes to maintenance and facilities that we've deferred maintenance. So we're really, really pushing kind of the edge of what I think is probably appropriate at this point in time. We won't be able to go back to operations in fiscal year 28 and make significant cuts because we've already done those. And so the remaining portion of that 7.1 million was 5.3 million. We cut that in personnel. The good news is that as of right now, we do believe that the vast majority, potentially all of it, will come through attrition, but we're working on the last few pieces here, especially with respect to classified staff, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't hit our goal of 100% attrition. But that's a much different story than I think we had last time, where I didn't think that we had a shot at attrition this year. So it's one worth talking about, and I think it's one that is a success here, and excellent work by our finance team, our leadership team, our HR team to be able to make that happen. I also am concerned that if we have to do cuts next year, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I would be very surprised if we can rely on attrition again to this level. But we did end up cutting a total 40.4 positions. These are not people, right? It's attrition based, so we're not laying off people, but 40.4 positions. The breakup would be certified, 26.1, and certified our teachers, right, for approximately $3.7 million. Classified staff, we reduced positions by nearly 11, totaling close to $1 million, and admin staff, we cut 3.5, totaling $665,000. And so ultimately, after meeting with the executive team and with the executive leaders and going through kind of this process, that is how we split across all different bargaining units, and that is how we were able to achieve the $7.1 million reduction between the requested and proposed budget. And so wanted to update this entire group on that. If there's any questions to that or any questions to the proposed budget that we haven't answered within your follow-up packet, please let us know. Like, this is our time to answer them before we go ahead with the proposed budget motion.
I'll add just a quick piece of information. It is true that we've been able to sort of handle this, so to speak, through attrition, and that is a great thing, especially when you look across our state and see school districts that are very much unable to do that. That does not mean that people are not very much impacted by these changes. So what that means is that nobody has fully lost a job. There have been reductions in hours in some cases. In some cases, different people have moved to different places across our organization because an opening matched their FTE allotment in a different place, which is a practice that actually happens every year. But I guess I just want to make clear to everybody here that while we say, yes, attrition is great, and that's true, it is very great, there are a lot of impacted people in our system and impacted schools and places, and all of those things are definitely felt throughout our system.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. And I'd add on to that too. I mean, probably the most tangible way, as an internal organization, it's great that we were able to do this through attrition and have to lay off any employees, but also the community is going to fill this because those are real 40 positions that we cut, and especially with our staffing ratios. Our staffing ratios are going to change from, each grade and each level has a different staffing ratio, but in many levels, they're going to have, on average, like another child to student in those teacher ratios. And so those are real positions that are being reduced. And even though we're not feeling it in terms of laying off people, certainly it's a big concern when our staffing ratios have to increase like this due to cuts.
One other thing that I'll add is that the stage that we're in terms of this kind of fiscal constraint for this year means that we have sort of operated through constriction. So there's less available in each of the spots. The reason that I think that's important for the budget committee to recognize is that what we haven't done is said, programmatically, this program will no longer exist in Ben Lapine across all of our schools. This program will no longer exist in Ben Lapine. At this point, it has shrunk to be less of all of our programs across all of our buildings. That has impacted certain schools in certain ways based on what students are forecasting for, based on what allocation is available to them. But in terms of a full-scale choice related to programs, I would expect that is likely part of the conversation as we move into next year.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. As I said, I'd open it up to any other questions regarding the proposed budget before the approval motion. If there are none, then we can move to the approval motion.
Directors, do you have any questions? Okay. Lakina, or anyone online have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Me too.
At this time, I will ask the Budget Committee to review the motion provided by the district, and I will entertain a motion to approve the budget.
Go.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Got to read it as written.
Have it up on my computer, so I can't get into that section board book, which is why I was trying not to make the motion. I move to approve the assessment of the permanent tax rate of $4.7641 per thousand of assessed value for the permanent tax rate levy, and to approve a tax of $48,357,008 in the debt service fund for the purpose of the payment of bonded debt owed by the school district, and to approve the budget in the aggregate amount of $580,664,622.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Amy has made the motion, and Ross has seconded the motion. At this time, I will now call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone that has participated in this year's budget process. With that said, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you to the Budget Committee. Appreciate you guys volunteering.
Thank you all. This is a tough year to be a membership. We really appreciate your willingness to step in.